Professor Bob meets T-Rex. Now, in my Western Civ class, I always do a section on dinosaurs and extinctions. And I was always fascinated by dinosaurs as a small kid. So anywhere we went, if there were dinosaurs, we went to see them. And when I had children and we traveled around, we did the same thing. Well, as a child in the 50s and growing up in the 50s and the 60s, our view of what dinosaurs were like and what reality is today are completely different. And I think you can really see that in particular in T-Rex. I mean, you have the bones. You've had the bones for a long time, 1800s. But suddenly they're interpreted differently, and you end up with kind of a different look, shall we say. So this is kind of a little tour of T-Rex with my slides and pictures. Now, here we have a nice old-fashioned T-Rex. Now, this is one that used to be, I don't know whether it's probably still there. This is at the Science Museum in St. Louis, Missouri. I particularly like this one because, you can go and get an idea. Now, I'm 6'2", and the weight is not an issue, although I've lost 30 pounds since this picture was taken. But you see the two of us. There's T-Rex. He's got his pot belly. I've got my pot belly. And I would make a pretty nice snack. Now, here I am trying to pull its tail, something you really probably shouldn't do, but it's pretty safe at this particular point. Again, to give you an idea of the size of this creature. Now, again, in the 50s and the 60s, and really before Dr. Robert Bacher's book, The Dinosaur Heresies, people would say, well, it's a slow-moving creature, obviously it's a carnivore, but, it's not a real fancy character. And you look at this and go, okay, it's big. Now, this is the old Field Museum. Well, the Field Museum entrance is still there, but what you see in it is different. Now, you can see the T-Rex bone structure there on the left-hand side. Let's get a little closer view of that. There we are. Now, you see, this looks like a middle-aged T-Rex. He's got the big pot belly out there. He's standing up. He looks ferocious, okay, at this point. But you'd still say, hey, he's probably slow. Now, there's a place in Texas, a state historical society area or national preserve, where they have dinosaur footprints. And it's kind of like in a river basin. And you can get an idea of how fast they're moving. Well, then things change. The dinosaur heresies and a whole new line of paleontologists come on the scene. See, here you go. There's Dr. Robert Bacher. And there's his T-Rex. You walk into the Museum of Natural History in Denver. I think it's the Museum of the Rockies. That's his T-Rex. And he wanted to display them as, fast-moving, that the bone structure was there, but they were always portrayed as being slow and plodding when in fact they weren't. So this one you can see doesn't really have the pot belly. That bone structure is moved up differently. It's the one thing about when you have a collection of bones. There are a variety of ways in which you can manipulate some of them, so you never know exactly what you're going to get. And what Dr. Bacher did was he began to ask questions of, okay, if they're slow, what's your proof? If they're dumb, what's your proof? And then going back, and it's completely changed the way paleontology functions. They used to say, oh, the dinosaurs were really stupid. They found out their actual brain size, it's like saying nature's stupid. Nature does not produce an animal that is incapable of survival. They're all properly located and given the right equipment. For example, in paleontology, you have really 3 different brain sizes in dinosaurs. The herbivores, the ones that eat plants, they have a smaller brain. But that's because they're only worried about eating a plant. That's not going to get away. The carnivores have a little bigger brain because they have to chase everything down, calculate it, do that kind of thing. But the omnivores have the biggest brain of all, and because they do both. So if you measure brain case and stuff like that, you can end up with that. If you're ever in Denver, you've got to go see this museum. It's the first thing you see when you walk in the door. Then we get to Sue, the most complete T-Rex ever found. There's a picture of Sue Hendrickson, who was instrumental in finding the fossils, and you can see the head of the dinosaur right there in front of her. You see the teeth in the lower right-hand corner. And then, of course, this is a gigantic soap opera, which I believe is still in the courts, at least who is going to get the money. But in the end, this fossil was sold at auction. And everybody was really concerned about this because they're going, well, if it sells for a lot of money, then how will museums get fossils? And then they interviewed collectors, and they said, if you don't pay something for these things, nobody's going to go out and look for them. Well, the Field Museum ended up with it. There you go. There's Sue, the T-Rex, in the main hall right there, ready to go. Now, of course, I was concerned about my old potbelly friend. And so I asked one of the people there, and they said, yes, it's something that everybody who's been here before asks about. But that animal was donated to another museum. Now, this is a perfect example of this different way they're displayed. Look at this. I mean, instead of this looks like he's going to jump out there and start harvesting tourists at any given point. Now, I would mention one thing about this. They've made a fortune off this. Sue has her own gift shop, okay, with nothing but dinosaur stuff in it. And it's spectacular. But the head on this, what you see in this picture, that is a replica of the original head. Because the head was so massive and weighed so much that they couldn't make a carriage to hold all the bones without that snapping off. So they put a replica head for weight issues, and the original is up on the second floor in a special case, which we'll see later. Now we're up on the second floor. I'm actually directly in front of the gift shop, which you don't see the bags that I have. And as you can see this in relationship to the people, it's like she's sneaking up on this people there with her back turned to it. Now this is I refer to this as the view, your last view of a dinosaur as it eats you up. You can see the teeth from the front, but here's a close-up of the teeth, and they're serrated. You see those little buds? So every time they lose a tooth, another tooth grows out. And the older ones, of course, you don't see that, but they're all serrated along the edge. So this is a slicing, dicing machine. Now, there's a picture of Sue's skull when they first excavated it because it was compressed from all the material. And then gradually it expanded back out, or they were able to expand it out. And as you can see here, this is a caption from there on the museum display. The brain case was well preserved, so they did a CAT scan of it, and you can map out the areas of the brain. So that's a pretty neat situation that they have. And then there's the original skull. Now you notice there are holes in her jaw, and she was gnawed on. Now she was either killed by another T-Rex or was being scavenged by another T-Rex. But she has what I call battle damage on her. Now you can see some of the holes and gouges and things. So it's quite stunning. I mean, it's always worth a trip in Chicago to the Field Museum. But man, this is spectacular. And of course, you want to go see the rest of the dinosaurs. They have another whole dinosaur room with a brontosaurus that has the correct head on it and everything, and it's really nice. It's a whole day. You got the Egyptian stuff, and it's one of the great museums of the world. And of course, this is the famous Larson cartoon, The Real Reasons Dinosaurs Became Extinct, this particular point. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed this visual podcast, and don't forget to come by the website, summahistorica.com or historyaccordingtobob.com, and ask a question, leave a comment, check out the CDs, and thank you very much.